Hello, and welcome to Sleepy Story Facts, where tonight's sleep story drifts softly into a bedtime story of distant stars, quiet wonder, and the slow, rhythmic glow of pulsars, those cosmic lighthouses that turn and turn in the velvet dark while your thoughts grow lighter and your breathing becomes slower, steadier, softer with every passing moment. And before we begin our relaxing story, allow yourself a little time to settle in, to loosen the day from your shoulders, to let the mattress hold you without effort, to feel the gentle bedtime hush gathering around you like a warm blanket laid carefully over the edges of your mind. Because there is nowhere to go now, and nothing to solve, nothing to fix, nothing to remember except this calm, this dim and peaceful nighttime story, and the easy sound of calming narration guiding you toward deep sleep. If you like, take one slow breath in, and then let it go as though you are releasing a small lantern into still water. And then another breath, quieter this time, and another, until even the idea of breathing begins to feel automatic and distant, like waves arriving at a shore so far away they never ask anything of you. And as your jaw softens, and the muscles around your eyes rest, and the hands that carried so much through the day become pleasantly heavy, imagine that you are floating in a silent region of space where darkness is never empty, only tender, only wide, only full of patient light. And there, far beyond the noise of clocks and traffic and unfinished thoughts, a pulsar sends its beam across the universe with calm and faithful regularity, not urgent, not harsh, simply present, simply repeating, simply becoming a quiet companion for anyone who wishes to fall asleep beneath the grand and untroubled architecture of the cosmos. In this gentle corner of the universe, the first relaxing fact arrives like a soft footstep. A pulsar is a kind of neutron star, the compact and resting core left behind when a very large star has lived its luminous life and then changed form. And though that beginning sounds dramatic in the language of astronomy, what remains now is something astonishingly serene. A star remade into density and rhythm, a small sphere of extraordinary matter turning in stillness, wrapped in darkness, carrying the memory of ancient fire without any need to burn brightly again. The second fact comes even more softly. Pulsars appear to blink, not because they are switching on and off, but because beams of radiation sweep outward from their magnetic poles. And as the star rotates, those beams cross space like the slow beam of a lighthouse over a sleeping sea, so that from far away, the pulse seems to arrive, disappear, and arrive again. A celestial breathing pattern, a cosmic metronome whose calm repetition has soothed scientists, dreamers, and night watchers for decades. Now imagine yourself drifting near one of these distant lights, not close enough for heat or danger, only near enough to sense its rhythm, while even farther off, like a dark mountain on the horizon of space, a dormant black hole rests in perfect silence, not as a threat, only as part of the scenery, a quiet well in the fabric of the universe. And between that deep stillness and this turning stellar lantern, you float in weightlessness, wrapped in a darkness so smooth, it feels almost like velvet brushed the right way. The third fact is a beautiful one For a night like this, pulsars are famous for their regularity, and some are so precise that their pulses can be measured with astonishing consistency, as though the universe itself has set down a line of tiny, dependable heartbeats in the dark. And there is something deeply comforting in that, because while human days can feel scattered and uneven, this far-off star keeps its rhythm without complaint, without hurry, without confusion, turning and returning to itself again and again. The fourth fact settles over the mind like cool air. Many pulsars spin incredibly fast, yet from this great distance, that speed does not feel frantic, only smooth, only seamless, because what reaches you is not effort, but pattern, not force, but repetition, like rain heard from inside a safe room, or the turning pages of a book you no longer need to finish. As your body grows heavier and your thoughts grow dimmer, the nighttime story deepens, and you begin to notice that space, so often imagined as cold or empty, can also feel sheltered, like a vast cathedral after everyone has gone home, where the hush itself seems sacred, and where each pulse of light from the cosmic lighthouse arrives with the gentleness of a hand on your shoulder, reminding you that rest is allowed. The fifth fact comes with a glow at its edges. Pulsars help astronomers learn about gravity, matter, magnetism, and time, not by shouting their secrets, but by repeating their signals over and over until patient minds can listen. And so, even in science, there is a lesson for sleep, because understanding does not always come from force. Sometimes it comes from stillness, from waiting, from allowing the quiet pattern to reveal itself in its own time. And so you continue to drift, held between stars, between breaths, between waking and dreaming, listening to the slow sweep of a beam that has traveled farther than any earthly lamp. And with every return of that light, you sink a little more deeply into the mattress, a little more completely into this sleep story, this bedtime story, this relaxing story of ancient remnants and gentle motion. And if a thought rises, let it pass like dust in a moonbeam, because the pulsar is still there, turning faithfully in the distance. And the universe tonight is not asking you to be alert, only to be present for a moment, and then drowsy, and then softer still, until the edges of the chapter blur, and the rhythm of the cosmic lighthouse becomes part of your own slow descent toward rest, toward deep sleep, toward the peaceful place where even science seems to whisper rather than speak. Now, as the night grows deeper and your breathing becomes so easy you hardly notice it at all, the gentle bedtime journey continues beside the patient glow of the pulsar, and you find that the darkness around you is not empty, but beautifully textured, like layers of soft velvet folded over one another in shades of midnight blue, charcoal, and silver black, while the beam of the distant cosmic lighthouse turns through that vastness with such calm regularity that it seems less like a signal and more like a promise, a quiet assurance that even in the widest reaches of space, there are patterns that remain faithful. And as this sleep story carries you farther from the clutter of the waking world, you may begin to sense how restful it is to imagine a star so small in size compared with ordinary stars, and yet so remarkably dense that nearly all its former grandeur has been gathered inward into a compact sphere, a resting ember of a once luminous giant. And although such a fact belongs to science, tonight it arrives as something softer, something almost cozy, because the idea of a great star folding itself into a smaller, steadier form feels like its own kind of bedtime, its own celestial way of settling down. And there is another relaxing fact drifting gently toward you now, that the magnetic poles of a pulsar are often not lined up with its spinning axis, which is why its beams sweep across space instead of shining in a fixed direction. And this quiet misalignment gives the universe one of its most soothing rhythms, a repeated passing of light that can be imagined as a lantern moving slowly across a dark garden path, returning again and again, never hurried, never lost, never uncertain of its course, while you float safely in the stillness between that turning beam and the far-off silhouette of the dormant black hole, which remains where it was, silent and remote, more like a deep valley in the fabric of night than anything alarming, a shadowed landmark at the edge of your peaceful route. And as your thoughts become dreamlike and loose at the edges, the story brings you another fact, one that feels almost impossible, and yet wonderfully true, that a neutron star can contain so much matter in so little space that even a tiny amount of its material, if one could somehow hold it, would be unimaginably heavy. And yet, in this nighttime story, there is no need to strain your mind around the numbers, because the important feeling is simply this, that the universe knows how to gather things inward, how to condense brilliance into quiet strength, how to make something small and still carry enormous depth, which may remind some hidden part of you that rest itself is not emptiness, but a kind of inward richness. And now the pulsar turns once more, its beam sliding over the dark like a calm hand smoothing a blanket. And with every sweep, your own body seems to yield a little more completely to rest, while the science of the scene continues to unfold with the gentlest possible touch, telling you that some pulsars are observed in radio waves, others in X-rays or gamma rays. And yet, what matters here is not the technical category, but the tenderness of the idea that the universe speaks in many forms of light, some visible, some not, all of them traveling through silence for extraordinary distances, carrying news of faraway objects with a patience so immense it makes every human hurry feel small and dissolvable. And perhaps that is why this relaxing story feels so easy to sink into, because pulsars do not demand attention in the way alarms do, but invite it in the way rain invites listening, with repetition, softness, and a kind of measured certainty. And among the most comforting facts of all is that astronomers value pulsars because their timing can be so precise, so steady, that these distant stars become natural clocks in the dark, not loud clocks, not the sharp ticking of a room you're trying to ignore, but deep cosmic clocks whose rhythm is stretched across years and light years, dependable enough to help scientists study time, gravity, and motion, while for you tonight that same steadiness becomes a cradle for the mind, a pattern simple enough to follow and gentle enough to leave behind as sleep draws closer. And now you drift a little farther through the velvet corridor of space, aware that some pulsars travel alone, while others keep company in binary systems, circling with another star in a long and elegant dance. And there is something profoundly soothing in that image too. The thought that even the densest remnants of ancient stars may move in companionship, bound not by noise or urgency, but by quiet gravity, by mutual turning, by shared patience. And as this calming narration continues, the beam returns once more, then once more again, each pass softer than the last, until the very idea of counting seems unnecessary and your mind no longer reaches outward for explanation, but simply floats, suspended between wonder and drowsiness, between fact and dream, between the last clear edge of wakefulness and the first soft shore of deep sleep, while the pulsar keeps turning like a lighthouse for sleepers, for wanderers, for anyone who needs a gentle bedtime path through the immensity of the stars. And in that faithful rotation, there is no pressure to stay awake, no task to complete, only the quiet permission to loosen, to soften, to fall asleep within the slow, serene machinery of the cosmos as the gentle bedtime voyage continues. And the great dark around you becomes even softer at the edges. You drift in that silent corridor of space with the same calm pulsar ahead of you, turning with perfect patience, sending its beam over the distance like a lantern that has long ago forgotten any need to impress and now exists only to comfort. And in this relaxing story, the next few sleepy science facts arrive slowly, one at a time, as if they too are trying not to wake anyone, beginning with the lovely truth that pulsars were first noticed because their signals repeated with such unusual precision that they stood out from the background hush of the universe. And there is something almost tender in that discovery, because it was not brightness alone that made them memorable, but steadiness, not noise, but rhythm, not drama, but consistency, a reminder that some of the most beautiful things in science are found not in explosions of attention, but in patient listening. And now, while your breathing grows a little slower and your hands feel a little heavier, you may picture the pulsar as a polished bead of starlight hidden in velvet, spinning deep in the night, each sweep of its beam arriving like soft rain on a distant roof. And another relaxing fact follows close behind, that pulsars can rotate at very different speeds, with some taking seconds between pulses, while others, known as millisecond pulsars, spin hundreds of times in a single second. And yet, from where you float tonight, none of that feels rushed, because all the universe offers you here is the smooth result, the repeating beam, the dependable rhythm, the sense that even astonishing motion can be translated into tranquility when viewed from far enough away. And perhaps that is one of the most soothing lessons of cosmic scale. That distance can turn intensity into serenity, just as the concerns of the day, once carried far enough into the night, begin to lose their sharpness and become only faint points of memory, barely glowing, barely able to ask anything of you anymore, while the pulsar continues its calm rotation, and the distant dormant black hole remains a dark and silent landmark at the edge of perception, so far away it feels less like an object and more like a pause in the shape of space, a quiet hollow in the great fabric of things. And now comes another sleepy fact, one that settles beautifully into this nighttime story, that many pulsars possess magnetic fields of immense strength. Fields so remarkable they help guide the beams streaming from their poles, and although the numbers behind such magnetism belong to the language of astrophysics, what matters for your resting mind is the gentler image, that of invisible lines curving gracefully through darkness, shaping the path of light the way a garden trellis shapes the climb of ivy, with no strain, no clamor, only structure, only form, only a hidden order that lets the universe move gracefully through itself. And as you listen, or half listen, or simply drift somewhere near the sound of these words, the story offers you another fact as soft as folded linen, that pulsars can gradually slow down over vast stretches of time, releasing energy little by little as they spin. And there is deep comfort in that idea too, because even stars are allowed to ease their pace. Even celestial remnants can take the long road into stillness. And if a star may spend ages becoming slower, gentler, quieter, then surely you as well may let your thoughts decelerate without guilt, may let the mind unwind without needing to hold its daytime speed, and the beam returns again through the dark, sweeping past like a calm breath. And with it comes another fact, that astronomers sometimes use pulsars to test the predictions of relativity, because their precise timing and powerful gravity make them extraordinary natural laboratories. And yet, tonight this does not need to feel technical, because the heart of it is simple and restful, that the universe contains places where time, motion, and gravity can be observed with exquisite care, where the hidden laws of reality reveal themselves through repetition, so reliable it begins to feel almost musical. And in this sleep story, that music is not sound, but pattern, not melody, but recurrence. Each pulse another note in a lullaby written across the black silk of space. And now the darkness seems warmer somehow, though not with heat, more with familiarity, as if you have been here long enough for the night to recognize you. And another calming fact drifts near, that some pulsars are part of binary systems and can gain speed by drawing material from a companion star, a process astronomers sometimes call recycling. And even this, told softly, becomes less a mechanism and more a cosmic image of renewal, of one star helping shape the rhythm of another, of motion being restored through quiet exchange, through slow celestial companionship. And by now, your thoughts may no longer want to hold each fact in a sharp and separate way, which is perfectly fine, because they were never meant to be studied tonight so much as floated past like little illuminated boats on a dark river, each carrying a small piece of wonder away from the waking mind and into the calmer waters of near sleep. And so the pulsar remains before you, faithful and undemanding, a true cosmic lighthouse for sleep, while the story continues to wrap science in softness and let each detail dissolve into the next, until facts become atmosphere, atmosphere becomes drowsiness, and drowsiness becomes that gentle downward drifting feeling, as though you are sinking not through fearsome space, but through layers of darkened silk, each softer than the one above. And the beam keeps turning, and the stars keep their long silence. And nothing in this immense universe asks anything more of you now than to rest, to loosen, to fall asleep under the patient care of distant light, to let the calm narration thin into hush, and to allow the oldest rhythms in the cosmos to carry you slowly and kindly toward deep sleep. And now, the sleep story carries you a little farther into the calm, into that soft region of night where thoughts become slower and farther apart, like tiny lights seen across an immeasurable sea, while ahead of you, the pulsar continues its patient turning, its beam arriving and passing, so steadily that it begins to feel less like light and more like breathing written into the fabric of space itself. And as this bedtime story deepens, another cluster of relaxing facts drifts gently into view, beginning with the quiet wonder that pulsars are so reliable that astronomers have used them almost like natural beacons, celestial markers whose repeated signals help reveal motion, distance, and the subtle behavior of the universe. And there is something deeply restful in imagining that a lonely-looking star that is not lonely at all, but useful, faithful, and consistent, keeping its place in the dark with a composure that asks for nothing in return, while you float safely in the surrounding stillness and feel your own pulse growing softer, less urgent, more willing to follow the calm rhythm of this nighttime story. And now the darkness around you seems smoother than ever, like black silk laid over an endless frame. And from somewhere within that velvet quiet comes another fact, that the pulses we detect from pulsars can be so regular that they help scientists search for tiny disturbances in space and time, including the delicate ripples known as gravitational waves. And even though the science of that is intricate, tonight the feeling of it is simple, because it means the universe is so delicately structured that even a faint tremor passing through its depths can leave a whisper in the timing of a distant star. And that whisper, patiently noticed, becomes knowledge, which is a soothing thought for any tired mind. The idea that even the faintest changes can be held gently and understood without hurry. And so the pulsar turns on, and you drift on, and the distant dormant black hole remains where it has always been in this story, far away and silent, less like an object than like an old shadow in a quiet valley of space, while between its dark stillness and the lighthouse beam of the pulsar, there stretches a corridor of perfect peace, a place where you are allowed to release every unfinished thought and let it float behind you like a ribbon untied from the day. And now another sleepy science fact comes to rest beside you, that pulsars are sometimes found in the remnants of supernovae, the beautiful expanding clouds left behind when massive stars change forever. And although the beginning of such a story belongs to fire and transformation, what remains now feels strangely tender, because in the long ages after upheaval, the universe does not stay loud. It settles, it widens, it glows softly around the small and dense heart that keeps turning inside it. And perhaps that is why this relaxing story feels so comforting, because it reminds you that even after great change, there can come rhythm, order, and a profound quiet. And as the calming narration continues in long, unbroken waves, another fact arrives with the softness of falling snow, that some pulsars send beams from both magnetic poles, so that depending on how they are oriented in space, their signals can appear in beautifully patterned ways to those watching from afar. And there is something lovely in imagining these hidden geometries, these invisible arrangements of axis and magnetism and light, all combining to make the steady pulse you now follow so easily, like a lantern glimpsed through trees at regular intervals along a country path at night. And by now, the body may feel heavier, the bed warmer, the edges of the room more distant. And this gentle bedtime journey invites you to notice how little effort it takes to keep listening, because the facts are no longer separate pieces to remember, but soft stones at the bottom of a clear stream, present without demanding attention. And among them lies another small wonder, that some millisecond pulsars spin so rapidly because they were gradually spun up by drawing matter from a nearby companion. And rather than feeling mechanical, tonight it feels almost affectionate, as if one star had leaned close enough to help another remember its rhythm, restoring motion not with force, but with time, with closeness, with the long patience that space understands so well. And perhaps, as you drift deeper into this bedtime story, you begin to sense that pulsars are calming, not only because they are scientifically fascinating, but because they are examples of dependable return, each pulse a quiet assurance that the cosmos contains repetition without boredom, regularity without harshness, constancy without noise. And in a world where so many things flash and vanish, change and call out, there is deep comfort in a distant object that simply keeps turning, keeps shining, keeps marking time with a softness that allows you to fall asleep rather than stay alert. And now one final fact for this part glides in on the hush, that astronomers have even imagined using pulsars for navigation, because their signals are so distinctive and so dependable that they could help guide a traveler through space. And what a serene thought that is for the closing moments of this chapter, that somewhere beyond all earthly roads there exist natural lighthouses, ancient rotating stars whose beams could one day help voyagers know where they are. Yet for you tonight, the journey requires no effort at all, no steering, no map, no destination beyond rest, because this sleep story asks only that you surrender gently to stillness, that you let the cosmic lighthouse turn above the darkened sea of your thoughts, and that you follow its rhythm not into wakefulness, but into deeper quiet, deeper softness, deeper sleep, where science becomes dreamlike and dreams become weightless, and everything in the universe seems to agree in its own hushed and patient way that now is the time to loosen, to drift, to be carried. By now, the night has become wonderfully deep, and this sleep story moves with the softness of something half dreamed, half remembered, as you continue drifting through the peaceful corridor between the quiet pulsar and the far-off dormant black hole, with no sound but the imagined hush of space, and no movement but the slow return of that faithful beam which comes and goes across the darkness like a lighthouse lamp crossing a sleeping ocean. And each time it passes, you feel a little less attached to the day behind you, a little more willing to sink into the comfort of this bedtime story, this relaxing story, this gentle bedtime current carrying you toward deep sleep without effort and without any need to keep track of where waking ends and dreaming begins, because the universe tonight is not sharp or cold, but velvety, spacious, and tender. And another cluster of relaxing facts about pulsars now arrives as lightly as stardust settling on still water, beginning with the comforting truth that pulsars are among the most reliable objects known in astronomy. Their repeated signals so stable that scientists can measure tiny changes against them and learn about motion, gravity, and the subtle structure of space itself. And there is something deeply calming in imagining that reliability. A star that keeps its rhythm through years and distances beyond easy comprehension. Never impatient, never distracted, simply turning with such unwavering steadiness that it becomes almost like a lullaby written in physics rather than sound. And as your body grows heavier and the corners of your thoughts blur pleasantly into shadow, another sleepy science fact glides into view: that pulsars are usually only about the size of a city, and yet contain mass greater than that of the sun, which means that in the vast theater of the cosmos, an object can become remarkably small and still hold extraordinary presence, a thought that feels oddly soothing at bedtime, because it suggests that quiet things may be immense in ways we do not immediately see. That stillness can hold power, that silence can contain whole worlds, while the beam returns again in its smooth and measured sweep, touching the darkness and slipping onward, touching the darkness and slipping onward, as if the star itself is breathing in a language so old and patient that sleep recognizes it before the waking mind does. And now another fact arrives wrapped in softness: that the first pulsar ever discovered was initially so regular that it surprised the scientists observing it, because nature had produced a signal of such astonishing periodicity that it seemed almost too orderly to be real. And yet, it was real, gloriously real, a reminder that the universe can be both mysterious and exquisitely disciplined. And this thought settles over you like a blanket, because there is comfort in order when it arrives gently, comfort in patterns that do not confine but cradle, comfort in repetition when it is as calm as distant light, returning on schedule across a boundless night. And perhaps that is why this nighttime story continues to feel so peaceful, because the pulsar never asks for attention in a harsh way. It only offers its pulse again and again, allowing you to listen or not listen, to notice or not notice, to simply rest in the presence of a cosmic rhythm that continues whether you follow it consciously or drift beyond it into dreams. And another quiet fact now joins the others, that astronomers can learn about interstellar space by studying how a pulsar's signal changes as it travels through thin clouds of gas and particles between the stars, which means that even empty-looking space is not truly empty at all, but gently textured, faintly filled, a delicate medium through which light must pass. And what a lovely thought that is for sleep, that the darkness around you is not a void, but a soft and subtle substance, layered and patient, like mist over a midnight field, or the hush that lingers in a room after the last lamp has been dimmed, and still the story drifts onward, calm and unbroken, with the distant, dormant black hole remaining a peaceful landmark at the far edge of awareness, never drawing nearer, never troubling the scene, only deepening the feeling of scale while the pulsar continues its serene turning. And now another fact comes to rest beside you, that some pulsars suddenly make tiny changes in their spin, events astronomers call glitches, and even this can be comforting when heard at bedtime, because it reminds you that regularity in the universe is not brittle perfection, but living consistency. A rhythm so strong it can hold small changes without losing itself, much as you can carry stray thoughts through the night without letting them pull you fully awake, letting them rise and fade while the deeper rhythm remains intact beneath them, and the beam moves on, and your breathing moves on, and the line between them feels softer now, almost shared, as if this calming narration and that rotating star were part of the same gentle bedtime mechanism designed not to excite the mind, but to quiet it. And perhaps the most relaxing fact of all for this chapter is simply that pulsars endure. They keep turning through vast reaches of time with a patience no human schedule could ever imitate. And in that endurance, there is no strain, only continuity, only the long piece of cosmic repetition, so that as this sleep story settles lower and lower into hush, you are free to follow the pulse only as far as you wish, and then let it continue without you. Let it turn out there in the dark while you drift elsewhere into deeper softness, deeper dimness, deeper rest, until the lighthouse of the stars becomes only a faint and beautiful rhythm at the edge of sleep, and even that fades gently as you fall asleep beneath the calmest facts of the universe. The night has grown so deep now that it feels almost weightless, and this sleep story glides onward with the same unhurried calm as the turning pulsar before you, whose beam continues to sweep through the darkness with such faithful softness that it no longer seems like a signal at all, but more like a rhythm the universe has always known, a gentle motion that asks nothing of you except that you rest beside it for a while. And as this bedtime story carries you farther from the busy shores of thought, another cluster of relaxing facts arrives in the smooth hush of space, each one drifting near like a lantern seen across a still lake, beginning with the lovely truth that pulsars help astronomers measure time with extraordinary precision, not because they are mechanical in any cold or rigid sense, but because their rotation is so dependable that it becomes a natural pattern in the sky. And there is deep comfort in that idea tonight, because the day may have been full of uneven moments and shifting demands, yet out here in the velvet dark, there is at least one star remnant that keeps turning with calm reliability, returning again and again to its own quiet rhythm, as though the cosmos itself were demonstrating how peaceful repetition can be when there is no urgency attached to it. And now, as your breathing becomes softer and your thoughts grow dimmer around the edges, another sleepy science fact unfolds, that pulsars are often detected through radio telescopes because their beams can be observed as repeating radio pulses. And though the instruments of astronomy belong to observatories and patient researchers, the feeling of that fact is wonderfully simple at bedtime, because it means that across unimaginable distances, a quiet pattern can still be heard, still be noticed, still be followed, as if the universe has ways of whispering over light years without ever raising its voice. And that whisper reaches into this relaxing story with the gentleness of distant rain, soft enough to soothe, steady enough to guide, faint enough that you do not need to hold on to it for very long before sleep begins doing the listening for you. And somewhere beyond your drifting awareness, the dormant black hole remains exactly where it has always been, far off and silent, like a dark valley carved into the fabric of night, not disturbing the peace, but deepening it, while between that still shadow and the steady lantern of the pulsar, there stretches the calm corridor that has become your nighttime story, your floating path into deeper rest. And into that path comes another beautiful fact, that pulsars can gradually lose rotational energy over immense spans of time, slowing so gently that the change is meaningful to science, but almost imperceptible to imagination. And what a soothing thought that is, that even a star of such density and precision can ease itself over ages into a slower turning, can soften its pace without ever losing its identity, as if the cosmos itself approves of slowing down, of letting motion become gentler, of allowing effort to melt into a longer and more graceful rhythm. And the beam passes again, and once more, and its repetition becomes a kind of cradle for the mind, while another fact drifts close enough to notice, that pulsars are often described as some of the most extreme objects in the universe, yet from a safe and dreamlike distance, they become not harsh or overwhelming, but curiously serene, because what reaches you here is not their intensity, but their order, not their force, but their pattern. And perhaps that is why this gentle bedtime journey feels so easy to follow, because the universe can hold astonishing things without making them frightening, can turn the remnants of immense events into something as calm as a cosmic lighthouse, sweeping the dark with a dependable beam that seems almost designed for those who wish to fall asleep under the oldest facts of existence. And now another soft fact rises through the hush, that by studying pulsars in binary pairs, astronomers have learned extraordinary things about gravity and motion, because the turning of one object around another can reveal tiny details in timing and behavior. And this too becomes tender in the telling, not a problem to solve, but an image to rest inside, two distant companions moving through the dark in patient relation to one another, held not by noise or urgency, but by gravity's quiet promise, circling in ways so regular and so ancient that even thought begins to loosen under their example. And your own mind, which may have circled the concerns of the day again and again, is finally allowed to release those orbits and drift free. And perhaps the most calming fact in this chapter is that pulsars endure in silence, not in the silence of emptiness, but in the silence of great patience, continuing their measured turning through a universe too large to rush, too old to clamor, too spacious to insist. And as this calming narration flows on in one long and gentle current, the beam of the pulsar grows softer in feeling, more distant perhaps, or perhaps simply more woven into the darkness around it, until it no longer stands apart from the night, but seems to belong perfectly to it. A natural pulse in a natural hush, and that hush spreads around you now like cool velvet, like deep water, like a blanket laid carefully over every last active corner of the mind, inviting you to drift lower still, to sink beyond analysis and beyond memory, beyond the need to follow each fact as a separate thought, letting them instead become atmosphere, becoming softness, becoming the final faint glow at the edge of consciousness, where this sleep story, this bedtime story, this relaxing story of pulsars and patient space continues without requiring anything more from you, and where the cosmic lighthouse keeps turning long after you have stopped listening, long after you have let the words dissolve, long after you have surrendered completely to the slow and peaceful gravity of deep sleep. The sleep story drifts onward now with such softness that it hardly feels like movement at all, only a gentle continuation of the same calm darkness, the same patient turning, the same faithful pulse of the distant cosmic lighthouse that has guided you this far into the velvet hush. And as you float in this serene corridor of space, with the dormant black hole still resting far away like a quiet hollow in the fabric of the stars, the pulsar ahead of you seems less like an object and more like a rhythm, something steady enough to lean your thoughts against while they gradually loosen and fall away. And tonight's relaxing story offers another handful of sleepy science facts with the same tender pace, beginning with the lovely truth that pulsars are not truly shining in flashes, the way a lamp is switched on and off, but instead send out beams from their magnetic poles as they spin. So what you notice from a safe and dreamlike distance is the returning sweep of light, the measured arrival and departure, the soft and regular reappearance that makes the dark feel organized rather than empty. And there is something deeply calming in that, because the universe here is not chaotic or demanding, only rhythmic, only dependable, only repeating its quiet gesture across the starless sea. And as your breathing slows a little more and your body becomes more aware of the bed beneath you than the day behind you, another fact settles gently into the story: that pulsars are born from the cores of massive stars, and when those stars change and shed their outer layers, what remains can become this extraordinary dense remnant, small in size, yet immense in presence, a kind of folded star, a star that has drawn nearly all of itself inward and become concentrated into stillness and spin. And in the mood of a gentle bedtime, this feels less like an ending and more like a transformation into calm, as though the star itself has learned how to put away its larger brightness and keep only a quiet, faithful heartbeat for the long night of the cosmos. And now the beam passes again, smooth as silk, and with it comes another soothing fact: that some pulsars are so precise in their timing that astronomers can use them almost like natural clocks, not clocks with sharp ticking in a room that keeps you awake, but clocks of the deepest possible kind, turning in darkness over years and ages with a steadiness so refined that tiny changes in motion and gravity can be noticed against them. And for you tonight, this fact becomes a comfort rather than a calculation, because it means there are patterns in existence older and calmer than any human schedule. Patterns that continue without pressure, without urgency, without asking you to keep up. And that is why it feels so easy now to let this bedtime story become less a sequence of facts and more a slow cradle of repetition. A place where knowledge softens into atmosphere and atmosphere softens into sleep. And somewhere within the great distance around you, there is also the beautiful idea that pulsar signals travel through the thin material between stars, through faint gas and unseen particles, and by the time those signals arrive, they carry small traces of the medium they crossed, which means the quiet spaces of the universe are never truly blank, only delicately filled, subtly textured, touched by invisible presence. And that thought seems especially restful now, because it turns emptiness into gentleness, turns darkness into softness, turns the wide night into something layered and almost velvety, as though all of space were made not of cold vacancy, but of whisper-thin curtains through which the lighthouse beam moves patiently, one sweep after another. And still the narration continues, low and unbroken, while another sleepy science fact glides past like a lantern boat on calm water, that some pulsars exist in pairs with companion stars, moving in long and graceful relationship, revealing their presence through the timing of their pulses and the dance of gravity between them. And there is a deep peace in imagining such companionship at cosmic scale, not loud or hurried, not dramatic or strained, only two distant presences held in a quiet pattern, each shaping the other's motion across vast time. And perhaps your own thoughts, which may once have circled the unfinished details of the day, can now take a lesson from those faraway orbits and settle into something slower, wider, and kinder. And now, the pulsar's beam seems almost blended with your breath, not because it has changed, but because your mind has stopped resisting the rhythm and begun to float within it. And one more relaxing fact arrives in that softened state, that the magnetic fields of pulsars are astonishingly strong, helping channel the particles and energy that create their beams. Yet from here, the power does not feel harsh, only elegant, only structured, only like invisible lines curving through the dark, with the same quiet grace as wind shaping tall grass or moonlight shaping the edges of a cloud. And that may be one of the gentlest things about sleepy science, that even immense forces can appear peaceful when seen from the right distance, when translated through stillness, when carried into a nighttime story meant not to excite the mind, but to ease it into rest. And so you continue drifting, and the dormant black hole remains remote and silent, a shadowed landmark that does nothing but deepen the calm by reminding you how spacious the universe is, while the pulsar ahead keeps turning as it always has, offering its beam again and again with patient consistency, like a keeper of the night who never tires, never hurries, never demands applause. And as this relaxing story descends further toward quiet, the facts no longer need to be remembered one by one, because they have already done their work. They have made the darkness feel warm, the distance feel gentle, the science feel soothing, and now they can simply dissolve into the background hush, leaving only the sense of a cosmic lighthouse turning through endless velvet, leaving only the permission to let your thoughts dim and scatter like faint starlight, leaving only the calm invitation to fall asleep, to drift past language, past images, past even the soft return of the beam, until the night itself seems to hold you in perfect stillness, and the whole serene universe becomes one long, slow exhale. Now the night feels so deep and so gentle that even the idea of distance has become soft around the edges. And this sleep story continues to drift in a hush, so complete, it seems to cradle every thought before it can fully form, while the pulsar ahead keeps turning with its old and faithful rhythm, sending its beam across the velvet dark like a lighthouse lamp, sweeping a shore that no longer belongs to waking life, and you remain in that peaceful corridor between the serene cosmic beacon and the far-off dormant black hole, which still rests in the background like a quiet fold in space, not frightening, not demanding, only deepening the stillness by reminding you how large and patient the universe can be. And as this bedtime story carries you farther from the busy brightness of ordinary hours, another cluster of sleepy science facts arrives with the softness of snow falling onto an already silent field, beginning with the comforting truth that pulsars are often identified by the remarkable regularity of their pulses, and that regularity is part of what makes them so beloved in astronomy. Because when something repeats with such calm precision across great distances and long spans of time, it becomes more than an object of study. It becomes a kind of reassurance, a demonstration that the universe contains not only vastness and mystery, but steadiness, order, and a rhythm gentle enough to follow into sleep. And as you imagine that slow, returning beam, you may notice how naturally it blends with your breath, as if the star were not calling you to attention, but accompanying you deeper into rest, one quiet sweep at a time. And now another relaxing fact drifts near, that pulsars can be observed because their beams happen to cross our line of sight as they spin, which means there are likely many more neutron stars in the universe whose beams never pass our way. And there is something strangely soothing in that hidden abundance, the thought that the cosmos may be filled with unseen lighthouses turning in silence beyond all notice, keeping their own private rhythms in dark places no human eye will ever follow. And tonight that thought does not feel lonely, but cozy, like knowing that beyond the walls of a sleeping house, there are other windows, other lamps, other quiet lives continuing softly in the night, while you remain safe and still in your own small place of rest. And the beam glides on again, smooth and measured, and with it comes another fact, that neutron stars, including pulsars, are made mostly of neutrons packed together under extraordinary pressure. And although the physics behind that density belongs to careful study and large equations, the feeling of it here is simpler and calmer, because it suggests a star that has drawn itself inward into a compact and peaceful form, a star that has become concentrated rather than scattered, composed rather than blazing. And there is a bedtime comfort in that image, the image of something once immense becoming small, quiet, and rhythmically self-contained, as though the cosmos itself sometimes knows how to tuck in its brightest fires and keep only the softest pulse. And as your thoughts drift farther apart, like tiny islands in a dark sea, another sleepy fact enters the story: that the beam from a pulsar is not a beam of ordinary lamplight, but radiation guided by the star's rotation and magnetic field. And yet, from a great and dreamlike distance, all that complexity becomes wonderfully simple, translated into a repeating gesture, a soft arrival, a dependable passing, something the tired mind can rest beside without needing to understand every hidden mechanism, much the way one can fall asleep to the rhythm of rain without calculating each drop. And that is part of the tenderness of sleepy science. That truth can be detailed and immense, and still reach us as comfort when carried gently enough, and the dark around you feels even smoother now, like long folds of black silk suspended in weightlessness. And within that hush comes another calming fact: that pulsars can help astronomers map motion and timing with remarkable accuracy, serving almost like natural reference points in the sky. And this idea too has a peaceful quality tonight, because it means the universe keeps its own quiet markers, its own patient guideposts, stars that turn not to be admired, but simply to continue, simply to be faithful, simply to let their signals travel outward in all directions until some distant listener receives them and understands a little more about where they are. And perhaps that is why this nighttime story has begun to feel so grounding, because somewhere in the immense dark there exists a steady beacon. And while you do not need it for navigation in any literal sense, some quiet part of you recognizes its constancy and relaxes in response, letting the day's scattered worries lose their shape and fade into the background hush. And now one final relaxing fact for this chapter settles over the story like a blanket laid carefully from shoulder to shoulder: that pulsars can continue their turning for very long stretches of cosmic time, gradually slowing, gradually changing, but never hurrying, never rushing their own long journey through the dark. And what a beautiful lesson that is for a sleeping mind, that even among the stars there is no need to race, no requirement to arrive quickly, only the long permission to move steadily, to soften gradually, to let energy unwind into quiet. And so, the cosmic lighthouse turns again and again in the distance, while you drift lower and lower beneath it, no longer trying to hold each fact separately, no longer needing to follow each image to its end, because everything here is becoming one continuous softness, one gentle bedtime current, one relaxing story made of darkness, rhythm, and patient science. And as the beam passes once more through the starless sea of your imagination, it leaves behind not brightness, but calm, not alertness, but release, not urgency, but a slow and tender invitation to fall asleep more deeply than before, until even the lighthouse itself feels far away, and only the peace remains, following the same sample-aligned, long-form sleep story structure. The night deepens gently around you in this soft and unbroken sleep story. You continue to drift through the velvet corridor of space, where the pulsar turns ahead of you with patient grace, and where the far-off dormant black hole remains only a silent contour in the distance, a dark fold in the fabric of the universe that asks nothing of you and changes nothing except the depth of the calm, while the beam of the cosmic lighthouse moves again and again across the hush with such dependable tenderness that it has become less like a signal and more like a breathing pattern for the stars themselves. And as this bedtime story carries you farther from the bright edges of waking life, another few relaxing facts about pulsars arrive slowly, softly, and in no hurry at all, beginning with the soothing truth that pulsars can keep such steady timing that astronomers trust them as some of the most reliable natural markers in the sky. And there is something deeply restful in that thought tonight, because the human day can feel uneven, scattered, and full of small urgencies. Yet somewhere beyond all of that, a compact star turns with unwavering rhythm, not trying to impress, not trying to rush, simply continuing, simply returning, simply offering the same calm pulse across the darkness, as if repetition itself were a form of kindness. And now, as your body becomes heavier and the bed beneath you feels more welcoming than any thought you were carrying before, another sleepy science fact floats gently near, that pulsars are neutron stars whose matter has been pressed into extraordinary density, so much so that they stand among the most compact objects known in the universe. And yet, from this dreamlike distance, the fact does not feel severe or technical, only beautiful, because it suggests a star that has gathered itself inward, that has folded brilliance into stillness, that has become a small and quiet keeper of rhythm after once being vast and luminous. And there is a peaceful metaphor in that for anyone listening in the dark. The idea that rest is not the absence of meaning, but a gathering inward, a soft concentration of self, a gentle bedtime drawing together of all the scattered pieces of the day. And the beam returns once more, sliding across the black silk of space like moonlight moving over calm water. And with it comes another relaxing fact, that pulsars are seen because their beams happen to sweep across our line of sight as they spin, which means their famous pulses are really the result of geometry, orientation, and patient motion, rather than flashing on and off. And that subtle truth makes them even more soothing somehow, because it reminds you that what seems like blinking is often only rhythm seen from a particular angle, a quiet lesson from the universe that appearances can be softened by perspective, that mysteries can become comforting when viewed without strain, and that not everything needs to be solved in order to help you fall asleep. And now the nighttime story seems to widen around you, becoming so spacious and so velvety that even the silence feels layered. And into that layered hush comes another fact, that some pulsars gradually slow over time as they release energy, their great turning easing little by little across immense ages. And what a calming thought that is for this hour, that even among the stars there is room for deceleration, permission for a long unwinding, a cosmic approval of slowness, so that if your own mind is still turning from the day, it too may slow without apology, may take the long path downward, may soften thought by thought, until the very act of thinking becomes too gentle to notice, and still the lighthouse beam glides onward. And somewhere within its measured return, there is another sleepy fact waiting quietly: that pulsars have helped scientists study gravity, matter, and the behavior of space itself, because their regular signals reveal tiny effects that would otherwise be hidden. And in the language of calming narration, this becomes less a matter of measurement and more a matter of listening, because it means the universe shares its secrets not only through grand displays, but through small, faithful repetitions, through patterns repeated with such patience that careful observers can hear the whisper beneath them. And for you tonight, that whisper is not a problem to investigate, but a lullaby to rest beside, a reminder that truth can arrive softly, that science can be tender, that knowledge can soothe rather than stimulate when carried on a slow enough current. And now another fact comes as lightly as dust floating through a beam of late-night lamplight: that pulsars are sometimes found in binary systems where they move with a companion star in long and graceful partnership. And this image too brings peace, because it transforms the deep universe into a place of quiet relation rather than isolation, a place where even the densest remnants of ancient stars may travel in companionship, circling one another with patience across dark and silent distances, held not by urgency, but by gravity's steady promise. And perhaps your own mind, hearing that, lets go a little more, trusting that not all motion is restless, not all repetition is burdensome, not all darkness is empty. And as this relaxing story lowers itself further into the softest part of the night, the pulsar ahead no longer seems separate from the darkness around it, but woven into it like a silver thread moving through black velvet. And that may be the most calming fact of all for now, that the universe can hold intense things in such peaceful forms, can take density, magnetism, distance, and time, and turn them into a simple recurring gesture, a cosmic lighthouse for deep sleep, a gentle bedtime presence that does not call you outward, but invites you inward. And so you drift a little lower still, no longer trying to keep each fact distinct, no longer needing to follow each sentence to its end, because the sleep story has become atmosphere. The atmosphere has become softness, and the softness has become a place where you can rest completely, where the beam turns on without you, where the stars remain patient without you, and where you are free at last to dissolve into the calm, to sink beneath the silver pulse, and to let the whole quiet universe carry you the rest of the way into sleep. The sleep story moves onward, now so quietly that it feels less like a journey and more like a settling, as if the whole universe has lowered its voice to a whisper just to keep the night undisturbed. And before you, the pulsar continues its measured turning with a softness that seems almost tender now, its beam sweeping across the dark not as a bright command, but as a slow and silvery reassurance, a cosmic lighthouse whose rhythm has become so familiar that your mind no longer follows it with effort, and instead simply rests within its return, while far behind and far away, the dormant black hole remains only a silent shape at the edge of awareness, a still and shadowed landmark that deepens the feeling of scale without disturbing the peace. And all around you, the velvet dark stretches in gentle folds, spacious and quiet, like layers of midnight fabric drifting in weightlessness. And within that come another few sleepy science facts about pulsars arrive one by one, not to awaken curiosity too sharply, but to soften it into wonder, beginning with the lovely thought that a pulsar is a star remnant that has kept a kind of order after immense change, and that there is something deeply comforting in that image, because it means that even after a star has transformed completely, even after it has left behind the wider shining shape it once had, it can still remain steady, still remain itself in a quieter form, still continue offering a regular pulse into the dark. And perhaps that is one reason this bedtime story feels so soothing, because the universe here is not telling a tale of endings, but of continuity, of rhythm preserved, of calm maintained through time too vast to count. And now the beam passes again, light arriving and moving on with such patient grace that it seems to smooth the darkness wherever it goes. And with it comes another relaxing fact that pulsars are often described as some of the best natural timekeepers in the cosmos. Their repeated pulses so dependable that they help reveal tiny details about motion, gravity, and the space between stars. And yet tonight this does not need to be held as a technical statement so much as a comforting one, because it means that somewhere out in the immense quiet there exists a rhythm that does not waver with mood, does not rush with worry, does not stumble beneath the weight of unfinished things, but simply continues evenly, peacefully, like a breath maintained across light years. And as you listen to that idea, your own breathing may begin to feel less like something you are doing and more like something that is simply happening, gently and automatically, as the body moves farther into rest. And now another sleepy science fact drifts near as softly as a lantern on dark water, that pulsars can sometimes be found inside the beautiful remnants of ancient stellar clouds, where the small dense star remains at the heart of a much wider region shaped by its past. And what a gentle image that is for sleep. The idea of a still center surrounded by softness, of a quiet turning presence held within a larger and more diffuse hush, because it resembles the way the mind settles at night, the way a single calm rhythm can remain at the center, while all the day's bright fragments spread outward and thin into harmless distance. And in this relaxing story, the corridor of space has become so familiar now that it feels almost sheltered, as if you have drifted into a hidden current of the cosmos, where nothing startles and nothing asks to be solved. And here another fact arrives, that the beams of pulsars are guided by magnetic poles and rotation, forming a pattern that depends on angle and alignment. And though the science beneath that pattern is intricate, the feeling it creates is simple and soothing. For what reaches you is only the visible rhythm, the quiet return of a signal shaped by invisible order. And there is comfort in knowing that beneath appearances there can be structure, beneath the soft sweep there can be elegant geometry, beneath the hush there can be a design so patient it never needs to announce itself. And still the beam keeps turning and the stars remain silent. And another fact glides gently into the nighttime story, that pulsars can gradually slow over long spans of cosmic time, easing their rotation little by little as ages pass. And perhaps this is among the most relaxing truths of all, because it means the universe itself understands how to slow down, how to unwind without resistance, how to let energy soften into gentler motion. And if a star may take the long road into quietness, then surely you may do the same, letting thoughts lose their momentum one by one, letting inner chatter dim, letting the mind move not toward one last conclusion, but toward stillness, toward the soft and peaceful blankness that comes just before deep sleep fully gathers you in. And now the pulsar seems less like something ahead of you and more like something within the atmosphere of the whole night. Its pulse no longer separate from the darkness, but woven through it like a silver thread stitched through black velvet. And that woven rhythm carries another calm idea, that science does not always need to feel bright and sharp and analytical, because sometimes the oldest facts can be held gently, allowed to glow at the edges rather than in the center, allowed to become part of a soothing narrative that lets wonder rest beside drowsiness without disturbing it. And so this gentle bedtime current flows onward, carrying you past detail and into feeling, past explanation and into hush, until the pulsar's regular turning becomes simply the soft backdrop of sleep itself, a cosmic lighthouse too patient to fade, too calm to call out, too far and too faithful to be anything but comforting. And as the beam sweeps once more across the endless quiet, you drift lower still, beyond the need to notice its return every time, beyond the wish to hold onto each fact, beyond even the shape of the story, until there is only softness, only darkness, only the long and tranquil sense that the universe is keeping watch in the gentlest possible way, while you fall asleep beneath its slow lantern of time. And so the night carries you onward, deeper into the soft interior of rest, where this sleep story no longer feels like something you are listening to from the outside, but something you are already floating within, like a quiet current moving through a moonless sea, while ahead the pulsar continues its measured turning with the same serene devotion it has always had, sending its pale beam across the darkness in long, patient intervals that seem to smooth the edges of thought each time they pass. And around you, the universe remains hushed and spacious, a great velvet chamber where nothing rushes and nothing insists, only the old rhythm of the cosmic lighthouse returning again and again, as if to remind you that repetition can be gentle, that order can be tender, that even the most remarkable facts in science can arrive like the softest of lullabies when they are carried slowly enough through the dark. And in this gentle bedtime story, another cluster of relaxing facts drifts into view, beginning with the soothing truth that some pulsars are surrounded by what astronomers call pulsar wind nebulae, delicate regions where particles streaming from the star interact with the space around them. And tonight that fact need not feel energetic or sharp, but almost painterly, like a small and steady lantern at the center of a faint glowing mist, a quiet heart wrapped in a larger softness, the way a candle might rest inside a paper shade, turning the space around it gentler rather than brighter. And as you imagine that subtle halo around the turning star, you may notice how easy it is now to let images form and dissolve without effort, without needing to hold them for long. Because sleep is drawing near in that kind and gradual way that asks only for surrender, never for concentration. And now the beam passes once more through the velvet dark, and with it comes another sleepy science fact that millisecond pulsars can spin with astonishing speed because, over long ages, some of them were gently spun up by drawing material from a companion star. And even that great fact can be heard tonight as something soft and peaceful, almost affectionate, as though one distant star had shared enough of itself to help another remember its rhythm, to restore its turning, to send it onward through time with renewed steadiness. And there is comfort in that image too, because it suggests that even in the deep silence of space, not everything happens alone. Not every motion is solitary. Not every endurance is unsupported. And perhaps the mind, hearing that, loosens its grip a little more on the tired fiction that it must carry everything by itself. And as this relaxing story continues in one long, unbroken breath, another fact settles quietly into the darkness, that pulsars can sometimes be used as part of vast observational efforts called pulsar timing arrays, where many of these steady cosmic clocks are observed together, so that astronomers may notice the faintest changes rippling through space-time itself. And what a beautiful thought that is when softened for bedtime, that the universe can be listened to through a chorus of distant and dependable stars, each one keeping its own patient rhythm, each one contributing its tiny faithful part to a larger pattern too subtle to hear any other way. And it begins to feel almost like a cosmic choir of silver heartbeats, far beyond sound, far beyond music, yet somehow still musical in their collective patience, still soothing in their silent agreement. And now the corridor of space around you feels broader, calmer, more familiar than ever, and the dormant black hole remains far away in the background, like a quiet well of shadow, remote enough to be nothing more than a shape in the larger stillness, while the pulsar's beam continues to turn before you. And another gentle fact comes with it, that the regular pulses from these stars can also reveal the presence of planets in rare cases, because small companions may tug subtly on the timing of the beam. And there is a secret softness in that idea, the thought that somewhere in the dark, a tiny world might circle a dead star's quiet remnant, almost unnoticed, except for the smallest shift in a rhythm, a little hidden orbit made visible only through patience. And that feels like one of the loveliest lessons of sleepy science, that not everything important announces itself loudly, that some wonders are found in tiny variations, in faint traces, in the almost imperceptible differences noticed only by those who watch gently and for a very long time. And by now, your thoughts may be too slow to follow every detail, which is perfectly fine, because this bedtime story no longer needs to be understood in sharp outlines. It only needs to surround you like a blanket of dark silk, carrying one last few calming impressions before they too dissolve into dream. And among them is the fact that pulsars are sometimes called the lighthouses of the universe, not merely because they pulse, but because their beams give direction to the imagination, teaching us to think in cycles, in returns, in patient rotations, rather than straight lines of urgency. And perhaps that is why this nighttime story feels so restful now, because it has left behind the noisy logic of the day and entered the circular rhythm of sleep, where everything comes back softened, where each thought that tries to rise is met by the same calm beam and gently shown the way back down. And as that beam sweeps once more across the endless dark, it leaves behind not brightness, but deeper hush, not stimulation, but release, not anything you must remember, only the slow and tender sense that the stars know how to keep watch without waking you, that the universe knows how to be vast without being harsh, and that somewhere out there, the pulsar will go on turning, calmly and faithfully, long after you have stopped listening, long after this sleep story has thinned into silence, long after you have drifted past language and image and thought, into the deep and peaceful dark, where rest becomes complete, following the same gentle, sample-aligned cadence you asked for. This chapter continues the slow, soothing flow of the bedtime story. Now the sleep story moves so softly that it almost seems to be dreaming itself, carrying you farther into the velvety stillness where the pulsar ahead turns with the same calm devotion it has offered all night, its beams sweeping through the darkness in slow returns that no longer feel separate from your breathing, but woven into it, as though the universe itself were breathing in long, measured intervals. And in this relaxing story, the dark around you is not empty at all, only wide and tender and full of patient structure, while the far-off dormant black hole remains where it has always been, a silent hollow in the distance, too remote to disturb anything, present only as a quiet reminder that space can be deep without being harsh, vast without being lonely. And as you drift between that distant shadow and the soft beacon of the pulsar, a few more sleepy science facts arrive like lanterns floating across black water, beginning with the beautifully calming truth that a pulsar is still, in essence, the core of a star that has become something smaller, denser, and more regular, as though all the broad brilliance of its earlier life had been gathered inward and refined into a single dependable rhythm. And there is such comfort in that image tonight, because it suggests that the universe does not always answer change with chaos. Sometimes it answers with order, with quiet rotation, with a pulse so steady that it can travel across oceans of darkness and still arrive like a whisper rather than a shout. And now the beam passes again, and with it comes another soft fact that pulsars are called lighthouses, not because they stand still on a rocky shore, but because their beams sweep outward from their magnetic poles as they spin, and from the right angle that turning motion creates the gentle impression of repeated flashing, though in truth it is only geometry and patience and motion working together in silence. And perhaps that is one of the loveliest things to remember as you fall asleep, that what seems like blinking may simply be the same faithful light returning again and again through the natural turning of time, like a thought that no longer troubles you because it has become part of the rhythm of the night. And somewhere deeper in the hush, another fact glides near, that some pulsars spin slowly enough for their intervals to feel spacious, while others, called millisecond pulsars, turn hundreds of times each second with astonishing precision. And yet from here, from this dreamlike and sheltered distance, even that immense speed has been translated into serenity, because all you receive is the pattern, the dependable pulse, the calm evidence that speed in the universe does not always feel frantic when held far enough away. Just as the concerns of the waking day lose their urgency when carried gently into the long, soft hours after midnight, and now your thoughts seem lighter, farther apart, drifting like pale dust in moonlight. And another relaxing fact settles among them, that pulsars can help scientists understand gravity and time, because their pulses are so regular that even tiny disturbances can be noticed against them. And tonight that fact belongs less to measurement than to listening, because it means the cosmos reveals its secrets through repetition, through patience, through signals that do not force themselves forward, but simply continue until someone quiet enough is there to hear them. And in that, there is a peaceful lesson for this gentle bedtime hour, that not everything important arrives dramatically. Some truths come softly, and some of the deepest patterns are found only when the world is quiet enough for them to be felt. And still, the lighthouse beam turns, silver and smooth, and the space around you feels almost warm now with familiarity, as if you have floated here long enough for the dark itself to become comforting. And another fact drifts forward, that some pulsars travel in binary systems with companion stars, moving together in elegant and patient orbits. And there is such softness in imagining that distant companionship, two ancient objects circling one another without hurry, without noise, held together by gravity's quiet promise. A motion so serene it feels less like mechanics, and more like a dance too slow for waking life. And as this nighttime story continues, you may feel that same slowness entering your own mind, smoothing every jagged edge, loosening every thought that still tries to stand upright. And now one more sleepy fact comes like a blanket being drawn a little higher, that pulsars do not keep exactly the same pace forever, but can gradually slow over immense spans of time, easing their spin little by little as the ages pass. And what a comforting thought that is here at the edge of deep sleep, that even the universe allows things to decelerate, that even stars are permitted to unwind, to soften, to move toward quieter forms of motion without losing their nature. And so, there is no need for you to hold yourself at the speed of day any longer. No need to keep thought turning quickly, because the cosmos itself offers another example, another permission, another tender invitation to slow and soften and release. And by now, the pulsar no longer seems like a distant object at all, but like a rhythm folded into the fabric of the night, a calm, recurring presence stitched through darkness like silver thread through black velvet. And that is where this sleep story leaves you for now, not at an ending, but in a deeper hush, where the relaxing facts have become atmosphere, and the atmosphere has become rest, and the rest has become something wide and floating and kind, until even the beam of the cosmic lighthouse grows faint at the edge of awareness. And all that remains is the feeling of being carried, gently and wordlessly, toward deeper sleep beneath the patient turning of the stars, in the same soothing long-form cadence established for this script. The night continues to unfold around you. The sleep story carries you onward so gently now that even movement feels like a kind of stillness, as if you are resting inside a slow current of dark silk, while the pulsar ahead continues its patient turning, its beam returning across the velvet gulf with such reliable softness that it feels less like light and more like a rhythm old enough to calm the stars themselves. And as this bedtime story deepens, the familiar corridor between the distant dormant black hole and the quiet lighthouse of the pulsar seems broader, dimmer, and more peaceful than ever. A place where the waking world can no longer quite reach you, and where another handful of sleepy science facts can drift near without disturbing the hush, beginning with the gentle truth that pulsars do not all speak in the same way, because some are best observed in radio waves, while others are known for signals in X-rays or gamma rays. And there is something deeply comforting in that variety. The idea that the universe has many ways of whispering, many ways of letting its oldest objects be known. Some in forms the eye cannot see, some in patterns the body simply feels as steadiness. And tonight, all of those possibilities soften into one simple impression, a cosmic presence continuing faithfully in the dark, while you grow heavier and more at ease. And now the beam glides past again, smooth as moonlight over a still sea. And with it comes another relaxing fact, that each pulsar has its own pulse profile, its own signature shape and timing, almost like a celestial fingerprint. And what a lovely thing that is to imagine as you drift toward deeper sleep, that among the countless lights of space, there are quiet identities written not in faces or voices, but in repeating rhythms, each one distinct, each one patient, each one turning through the immense hush in its own serene way. And perhaps that thought settles into you as a kind of comfort too, because it suggests that constancy need not mean sameness, that repetition can still carry individuality, that the universe can be orderly without losing its subtle beauty. And as this relaxing story continues, another soft fact arrives, like the faint touch of cool air, that pulsars can sometimes experience tiny shifts in their spin called glitches, moments when the rhythm changes just a little. And even this belongs beautifully in a gentle bedtime tale, because it reminds you that steadiness does not mean rigid perfection. It means a deeper continuity that can hold the smallest adjustments without losing itself, the way sleep can continue even when a stray thought rises and fades, the way the sea remains calm even when one small ripple passes over it. And so the pulsar's faithful turning remains a comfort, not because it never changes at all, but because its larger rhythm endures through those changes with remarkable grace. And somewhere in the deep black hush around you, another fact appears, that some astronomers have imagined using pulsars as natural guides for spacecraft navigation, because their repeated signals are so dependable and so distinctive. And in the mood of this nighttime story, that idea becomes less about machines and routes and more about trust, about about the profound peace of knowing that the universe contains its own markers, its own gentle beacons, its own faraway lanterns that could guide a traveler through the dark without ever raising their voice. And though you are not navigating anywhere tonight except inward, toward rest, perhaps some quiet part of the mind is soothed by the knowledge that even in the largest darkness, there are patterns one could follow, dependable signs that remain. And now the pulsar turns once more, and the darkness around it seems softer than ever, almost like layers of black velvet brushed by a silver hand. And another sleepy science fact settles over the story that pulsars slowly lose energy as they spin, their motion easing over ages so long that the change becomes part of the poetry of time itself. And what a tender image that is for this hour, a star not collapsing into silence all at once, but unwinding with patience, releasing its great stored motion grain by grain across cosmic centuries, as though even the universe prefers a gentle bedtime, a long quieting, a gradual surrender into slower and softer states. And by now, it may feel easy to let that same permission enter your own body, your own thoughts, your own breathing, to let each worry slow, each memory dim, each remaining alertness loosen and descend, and still the calming narration continues in one unbroken thread. And another fact drifts near with the hush of distant snowfall that pulsars have helped scientists test subtle ideas about gravity and space-time, because their repeated signals can reveal tiny effects with extraordinary clarity. Yet, tonight that fact asks for no effortful attention, because all it really means here is that the universe can be listened to through patience, through repetition, through very small differences noticed over great spans of time. And there is something profoundly sleepy in that, something almost like the wisdom of the night itself, which never rushes, never hurries the dark into morning, but lets each minute settle fully before the next one arrives. And now, the pulse is no longer something you follow so much as something that carries you. A soft, recurring gesture woven into the fabric of this sleep story. This gentle bedtime drifting, this relaxing story of cosmic lighthouses and velvet silence, until the facts themselves become less like information and more like texture, part of the soft atmosphere of the tale. And the pulsar, with all its density, magnetism, timing, and ancient endurance, becomes simply a calm companion in the far distance. One more steady thing in a universe full of patient motions. One more silver rhythm at the edge of awareness. And as it turns again through the endless quiet, you drift lower with it, farther from thought, farther from effort, farther into that serene and sheltered place where the night seems to close gently around you like folded wings, and where falling asleep feels less like leaving and more like being received. The night has become so soft now that even the great distances of space seem to rest. And in this sleep story, you continue to drift through the same velvety corridor where the pulsar turns ahead of you with a steadiness that feels almost ancient enough to be comforting on its own, as though the universe had placed one patient lantern in the dark and asked it only to keep sweeping its calm beam over the endless hush, while tired minds slowly let go and fall asleep. And as this bedtime story moves onward, the far-off, dormant black hole remains only a silent depth at the edge of awareness, a shadow too distant to trouble anything, while the true focus stays on the cosmic lighthouse before you, whose repeating pulse now feels less like a signal to notice and more like a rhythm to float within, a silver return that comes and goes through the black silk of space with such faithful gentleness that your thoughts grow quieter each time it passes. And another handful of sleepy science facts drifts near, beginning with the soothing truth that the pulses from a pulsar do not always reach observers in exactly the same simple way. Because as they travel through the delicate material between the stars, lower radio frequencies can be slowed slightly more than higher ones, a graceful effect called dispersion that tells astronomers something about the thin gas spread through interstellar space. And tonight that fact feels less like a calculation than a soft reminder that even the darkest spaces are not empty, that the night between stars is textured, whisper-thin, and quietly present, like layers of fine mist through which the lighthouse beam must pass before it arrives. And now the beam turns once more, and with it comes another relaxing fact, that the surface of a neutron star is thought to be solid in a way, unlike the surfaces of ordinary worlds, with an outer crust so dense and unusual that even tiny shifts there can matter. And when astronomers notice small, sudden changes in spin, they sometimes connect them to internal adjustments in the star, almost like a faint settling deep within its compact structure. And what a peaceful way to imagine it at bedtime, not as anything sharp or startling, but as the smallest sigh within a very old object, a minute realignment in the hidden layers of a star that has carried its rhythm across the ages. And by now, the darkness around you feels warmer with familiarity, and the pulsar's beam, though distant, has become a companion rather than a curiosity. And another fact rises quietly into the story, that some pulsars emit beams so steadily because their rotation and magnetic geometry create an enduring pattern, a dependable sweep shaped by the star's axis and field. And from far away, all of that invisible structure becomes something beautifully simple, a returning lantern, a measured curve of light through darkness, proof that complexity can arrive as calm when viewed from the right distance, just as the tangled details of the day can soften into something harmless once the hour grows late enough. And somewhere within this relaxing story, there is also the beautiful truth that pulsars have helped scientists test deep ideas about matter under extraordinary pressure, because conditions inside neutron stars cannot be recreated easily elsewhere. And yet, even that immense scientific importance feels soothing tonight, because it means the universe keeps its wisdom in quiet places, in small, dense stars turning patiently in the dark, in old remnants that do not boast or flare for attention, but simply continue, pulse after pulse, until someone listens long enough to understand a little more. And still the cosmic lighthouse turns, and your breathing seems to drift with it. And another sleepy fact arrives as softly as moonlight on still water, that some pulsars gradually become harder to detect as they lose energy and age, as though their bright certainty slowly dims into subtler forms over vast stretches of time. And there is something profoundly restful in that image, because it is not an abrupt silence, but a long and gentle fading, a cosmic version of the way this nighttime story itself is designed to soften, to lower, to recede into hush as you descend toward deeper sleep, until words become atmosphere and atmosphere becomes rest. And now, the corridor of space seems almost dreamlike in its stillness, with the dormant black hole far behind the edges of thought, and the pulsar ahead reduced to pure rhythm. And another calming fact glides near, that pulsars can sometimes reveal the presence of their surroundings through tiny changes in timing and signal shape, allowing astronomers to learn not only about the stars themselves, but also about the space, matter, and motion around them. And that feels gentle here, because it suggests that patient patterns can illuminate whole environments without ever raising their voice. That quiet repetition can tell a larger story, that a single steady beacon can help map a dark sea simply by continuing to be itself. And perhaps that is why this gentle bedtime journey has become so peaceful, because the pulsar does not demand attention. It only keeps its place, keeps its sweep, keeps its promise of return. And in that constancy, there is permission for your own mind to stop searching, stop solving, stop circling the unfinished edges of the day, and instead to do what even stars seem to know how to do, which is to slow, to settle, to remain present without effort. And as the beam passes once again through the velvet dark, touching nothing and everything with its calm arc, the whole universe seems to agree in silence that there is no need to hurry anywhere now, no need to think one thought further, because the lighthouse will keep turning without your help. The stars will keep their patient watch without your attention. And this sleep story, this relaxing story of pulsars and stillness and deep cosmic time, can carry you the rest of the way by itself, farther into softness, farther into quiet, farther beneath the hushed arc of the turning beacon, until even that silver rhythm grows faint, and only the peace remains. The sleep story continues to drift with such tenderness, now that it feels almost as if the universe itself has grown drowsy, as if the stars have lowered their brightness, and the great black distances between them have become softer, warmer, gentler, and there ahead of you, the pulsar still turns with the same faithful calm, its pale beam sweeping across the velvet dark in measured arcs that no longer ask to be noticed, only felt, only allowed, only received as part of the night's slow breathing, while far away the dormant black hole remains a quiet shadow folded into the fabric of space, distant enough to be only depth and not danger, only silence and not strain. And in this bedtime story, you float between those two ancient presences, as though cradled in a corridor of stillness made just for rest, while another handful of relaxing facts about pulsars arrives in the same peaceful way, beginning with the lovely truth that some pulsars send out beams so steadily that their timing can be followed across years with astonishing precision, allowing astronomers to notice even the smallest changes in motion or gravity. And tonight that fact feels less like science to be studied than like a comfort to lean against, because it means that somewhere beyond every hurried schedule and unfinished thought there exists a rhythm that simply keeps going, calm and reliable, unaffected by the brief restlessness of human hours. And that kind of constancy is very soothing when the mind is ready to loosen its grip and fall asleep. And now the beam passes again, smooth as silver light over still water. And with it comes another sleepy science fact, that pulsars are not large stars shining broadly into the dark, but compact remnants, tiny by stellar standards, and yet astonishingly dense. And there is something deeply peaceful in imagining such a small object holding so much quiet presence, as if the universe were gently teaching that greatness does not always arrive with volume or size, that sometimes the most enduring things are gathered inward, condensed into simplicity, refined into a soft, repetitive gesture that asks nothing from anyone and still remains beautiful beyond measure. And as this relaxing story continues in one long and unbroken breath, another fact drifts near like a lantern through mist, that pulsars can act as natural probes of the interstellar medium, because their signals change slightly as they travel through the thin matter between stars, which means that even the emptiest looking regions of space are softly textured, faintly filled, touched by invisible substance. And what a comforting thought that is now, that the dark around you is not blank or barren, but delicate and layered, almost like a black ocean, with unseen currents through which the lighthouse beam must pass, carrying with it the quiet memory of every region it has crossed before reaching your sleeping imagination. And now the night seems deeper still, not heavier in any troubling way, but fuller, more complete. And another fact enters with the softness of late snow, that pulsars can gradually slow as they age, releasing energy over immense spans of time. And that long unwinding feels like one of the gentlest ideas in all of sleepy science, because it tells you that even stars are allowed to soften. Even ancient cosmic remnants do not race forever. Even the most precise rhythms can become slower with grace. And perhaps your own mind hears that and takes it as permission to stop turning so quickly, to stop circling old questions, to let thoughts grow wider apart until each one fades before the next one fully arrives. And still the pulsar turns, its beam now less like an object in the distance and more like a hush folded into the whole atmosphere of the night. And another calming fact comes with it, that some pulsars exist in binaries, moving with companion stars in long and subtle orbits that reveal themselves through tiny variations in timing. And there is such tenderness in that image, two distant objects carried through darkness, not by urgency, but by quiet relation, held together by gravity's invisible patience, circling in a silence so complete it seems almost holy. And in that image there is relief, because it suggests that even in the wide universe not everything is solitary. Not every turning happens alone. Not every deep and ancient thing must bear itself without accompaniment. And now your thoughts may already be too soft to hold each fact clearly, which is perfectly right for this part of the journey, because the facts no longer need to stay sharp. They only need to leave behind their feeling, and that feeling is one of stillness, continuity, and trust. Trust in rhythms that do not break. Trust in darkness that does not threaten. Trust in a cosmos that can be immense and yet serene. And so another final fact for this chapter arrives almost without edges, that pulsars have helped humanity test some of the deepest ideas in physics, not through grand spectacle, but through repeated, patient signals observed over time. And what a beautiful lesson that is for the sleepy heart. That truth can come quietly. That understanding can emerge through gentle repetition. That the most profound things in the universe may whisper rather than shout. And as the beam sweeps once more across the endless velvet, it seems to gather all of those ideas into a single calm motion and carry them away from the waking mind, leaving you with nothing more to do, nothing more to remember, nothing more to follow, except the slow descent into deeper dark, where the cosmic lighthouse goes on turning without needing your attention, where the stars remain faithful without asking anything in return, and where this gentle bedtime current carries you farther from thought, farther from effort, farther into that peaceful region beyond language, beyond image, beyond the last soft sweep of the faraway beacon, into the quiet center of deep sleep. Now the sleep story drifts into the quietest hour of all, that soft and hidden part of the night, when even time seems to loosen its shape, and you continue to float within the familiar corridor of velvet darkness, where the pulsar ahead keeps turning with patient, silvery devotion, sending its calm beam across the hush in slow returns that feel almost like memory now, or like breathing, or like the gentle rise and fall of a tide too distant to hear and too kind to disturb you. And in this bedtime story, the universe has become so peaceful that nothing stands apart sharply anymore. Not the stars, not the darkness, not even the thought of distance itself. For everything has softened into one unbroken atmosphere of rest, while far away the dormant black hole remains only a deep and quiet contour beyond concern, a remote hollow in the cosmic landscape that does nothing but deepen the feeling of shelter around you. And as this relaxing story carries you farther from waking thought, another small gathering of sleepy science facts arrives with the softness of dust floating through a narrow beam of lamplight, beginning with the lovely truth that pulsars are among the clearest examples in the sky of steady repetition, objects so dependable in their turning that their pulses can be followed like a rhythm laid carefully across the dark. And tonight that fact feels less like astronomy and more like reassurance, because it means there is at least one corner of existence where motion becomes calm, where return becomes comfort, where the same light can pass again and again without ever becoming harsh. And that is such a gentle thing to rest beside when you are ready to fall asleep, to release the clutter of the day, and to let the mind follow something simpler than thought. And now the beam glides onward once more, smooth and pale, and with it comes another soothing fact, that pulsars are neutron stars whose matter has been pressed into extraordinary density. And though that truth belongs to the great language of science, here in the nighttime story, it feels almost tender, because it suggests a star that has drawn itself inward, gathered itself into stillness, becomes smaller but not lesser, quieter but not dim in meaning, a celestial heart condensed into rhythm. And perhaps there is comfort in that too, the sense that not everything valuable must remain broad and blazing, that sometimes the deepest presence lives in what has become compact, serene, and faithful. And as the calming narration continues in one long, slow current, another fact drifts near, that the pulse we notice is shaped by rotation and alignment, by the graceful geometry of a beam crossing our line of sight at regular intervals. And what a gentle thought that is for this hour, that what feels like a blink in the heavens is really a patient turning, a continuous motion seen from the right angle, a lighthouse effect born not from urgency, but from steady orientation, as though the universe were quietly reminding you that some things only seem to vanish because they are circling. Some things only seem intermittent because they are faithful in a larger rhythm. And so any drifting thought that comes and goes in your own mind can be allowed the same kindness, permitted to pass without being held. And now the darkness around you feels almost like fabric, layered and silky and impossibly soft. And another sleepy fact enters the story, that some pulsars live in binary systems with companion stars moving together in elegant relation over long stretches of time. And even this scientific image becomes soothing here, because it is not a noisy dance, but a silent one, not hurried, but spacious, two old presences carried by gravity through the dark, in motions so subtle and enduring that they feel less like mechanics and more like trust. And perhaps your breathing takes comfort from that image, slowing even more as though it too has found an orbit, a natural pace, a quiet partner in the rotating beam ahead. And now another fact settles gently over the story, that pulsars can help reveal the nature of the space between the stars, because their signals change slightly as they travel through that delicate medium. And this too feels beautiful in a gentle bedtime way, because it means the darkness is not empty, but softly textured, faintly filled, alive with subtle traces and invisible threads through which the beam must pass, turning emptiness into atmosphere and distance into something almost warm, like mist hanging over a sleeping field, like a room after the lamp has been switched off, but before the memory of light has fully faded. And still the pulsar turns, and your body feels heavier, quieter, more willing now to sink without effort, while one more calming fact comes close enough to notice, that pulsars gradually slow over immense spans of time, releasing their energy little by little in a long unwinding that belongs more to patience than to change. And this may be the gentlest lesson of all for the deep sleep hour, because even among the stars, there is no need to rush forever, no need to maintain the full speed of an earlier brightness, no rule that says a rhythm cannot soften and remain beautiful. And with that thought, the whole sleep story seems to lower its voice even further, becoming softer than language, softer than image, softer even than memory, until the cosmic lighthouse ahead is no longer something separate from the night, but part of the night's own breathing, a silver pulse stitched through black velvet, a faithful presence that asks for nothing and gives only calm. And this bedtime story, this relaxing story, this gentle bedtime current carries you onward beneath it, past effort, past analysis, past the last clear edge of wakefulness, until the beam sweeps once more across the quiet sea of space and leaves behind only peace, only softness, only the deep and welcoming dark in which you can rest completely, and where the lighthouse of the stars keeps turning long after you have surrendered to sleep, continuing in the same long-form, ultra-calming cadence and structure you established for this script. The night opens even more softly around you now, and the sleep story moves onward like a quiet current beneath a moonless sea, where the pulsar ahead continues its patient turning, and its pale beam sweeps the velvet dark with such gentle regularity that it seems less like a signal and more like a lullaby written in light. And as this bedtime story carries you farther from the last faint edges of waking thought, you may feel that everything in the universe has grown quieter, smoother, almost tender, as though the black reaches of space themselves have decided to soften for the sake of rest, while behind and far away, the dormant black hole remains only a dim and silent depth in the background, a remote hollow in the fabric of the cosmos that does not trouble the calm, but simply makes the stillness feel deeper. And here, in the middle of that serene corridor, another few sleepy science facts about pulsars arrive slowly, lightly, like lanterns drifting over dark water, beginning with the beautiful truth that a pulsar's famous pulse is not really a blinking lamp at all, but the effect of a rotating neutron star whose beam crosses the observer's view again and again. And that gentle fact feels especially soothing now, because it reminds you that what looks like disappearance is often only turning. What seems to vanish may simply be circling back, and what leaves the eye for a moment can return with perfect faithfulness, just as calm returns when you stop reaching for it and simply let it come. And now the beam glides by once more, smooth as silver on still water, and with it comes another relaxing fact, that the magnetic axis of a pulsar is usually tilted away from its spin axis, and it is this quiet misalignment that allows the beam to sweep through space like a lighthouse over a sleeping shore. And there is such tenderness in that idea tonight, because it suggests that even slight asymmetry can create beauty. Even a star that is not perfectly lined up can become a source of rhythm and grace. And perhaps your own unfinished thoughts, your own imperfect little worries, can be allowed the same kindness, because they too do not need to be made perfectly straight before they can settle into sleep. And as the story drifts deeper, another fact settles softly beside you, that the regions near a pulsar's magnetic poles are where charged particles can be accelerated, and where the conditions arise for those remarkable beams to form. Yet from here, at this safe and dreamlike distance, all of that invisible activity becomes only a calm, recurring gesture, a patient sweep through the dark. And this may be one of the most restful things about sleepy science, that immense and complicated processes can arrive at the ear as pure simplicity, translated by distance into softness, reduced by scale into comfort, the way a storm far out at sea becomes only a low and pleasant hush by the time it reaches a quiet shore. And now another sleepy fact drifts near, that astronomers sometimes speak of timing noise in pulsars, small irregularities laid delicately over an otherwise steady rhythm. And even that belongs beautifully in a gentle bedtime tale, because it means the universe does not require absolute sameness in order to remain dependable. The larger pattern can hold tiny variations without breaking. The greater calm can include the smallest ripples without losing itself, and if the stars are permitted such softness in their precision, then surely your own mind may also rest without becoming perfectly blank, allowing a stray thought here and there to pass harmlessly through the dark, while the deeper rhythm of sleep continues below it, and still the pulsar turns, and the corridor of space feels more sheltered than ever, almost like a hidden room made of darkness and distance. And another calming fact arrives with the hush of falling snow, that some of the fastest pulsars, called recycled or millisecond pulsars, are thought to have been spun up over long ages by drawing matter from a companion star. And there is something profoundly peaceful in that image when heard at this hour, the thought of one ancient star quietly helping another recover its rhythm, restoring motion, not through urgency, but through long companionship, through steady exchange, through time itself. And the idea settles around you like a warm blanket, because it suggests that even in deep space, where silence seems endless, there can still be quiet forms of support, unseen kindnesses, slow relationships that shape the night. And now your breathing may feel so easy that it barely seems to belong to you at all. And another fact drifts in on that ease, that pulsars can gradually lose energy and slow over immense spans of time, their turning easing little by little through the ages. And what a gentle cosmic lesson that is for the quietest part of night, because it means the universe itself understands how to unwind, how to soften motion without fear, how to become slower and still remain beautiful. And perhaps that is all this relaxing story has ever been asking of you, not to force sleep, not to chase deep sleep, but only to slow in harmony with the stars, to let each thought release a little energy, to let each breath become longer and calmer, until the mind turns as softly as the lighthouse beam, and then softer still. And now one final fact for this chapter glimmers faintly at the edge of awareness, that pulsars have become precious to science, not because they are loud, but because they are patient, because they repeat, because they continue. And there is deep comfort in that truth as the story thins into hush, for it means that some of the universe's most revealing voices are also its gentlest ones. And so the beam sweeps once more across the endless velvet dark, and once more again. And with each return, it seems to gather the last loose fragments of wakefulness and carry them quietly away, until there is almost nothing left but softness, almost nothing left but the sense of floating beneath a silver turning in a universe that has grown entirely kind. And there, in that vast and tender stillness, the sleep story lowers its voice to nearly nothing and lets the cosmic lighthouse continue on without you, faithfully, peacefully, beautifully, while you drift deeper than thought into rest, following the same gentle cadence established in your sample. This final chapter becomes a slow, fading outro designed to let the story dissolve into rest. Now the sleep story reaches its quietest shore, and the night around you has become so soft, so deep, so endlessly patient that even the stars seem to whisper from very far away, while ahead of you, the pulsar continues its slow and faithful turning, sending one last silver sweep through the velvet dark like a lighthouse whose only purpose has ever been to comfort, and you drift in that familiar corridor of space with no effort at all, held between the distant silence of the dormant black hole and the serene rhythmic beam of the cosmic lantern. And there is nothing left for you to do now, nothing left to remember, nothing left to follow closely, because the story has already carried you beyond the busy edges of thought and into a place where even science becomes soft, where facts become atmosphere, and where atmosphere becomes the gentlest invitation to fall asleep. The pulsar turns again, and its beam moves across the dark in the same patient arc it has traced all through this long, relaxing story. And now that movement feels less like light and more like kindness, less like astronomy and more like reassurance. A calm, repeating presence in a universe wide enough to hold every tired thought until it loosens and fades. And if some small corner of the waking mind still lingers, still listening, still trying to hold the outline of the chapter, or the path of the voyage, or the silver thread of the lighthouse beam, it can let go now, because the beam does not need your attention to keep turning, and the stars do not need your effort to remain where they are. And the night itself is perfectly capable of carrying the story onward without asking anything more from you. And so the darkness grows even gentler, like layers of black silk settling one over another, while the pulsar continues its calm rotation far ahead, each pulse arriving softly and then passing on, softly and then passing on, until the pattern feels almost indistinguishable from your own breathing, slow and easy, quiet and untroubled. And the scientific wonder that began this bedtime story has now become something quieter than wonder, something more like trust in the steadiness of distant things, trust in the peace of vast spaces, trust in the ancient rhythm of a star remnant turning patiently through ages of silence, and trust, too, that you do not need to stay awake to appreciate any of it, because rest is also a way of belonging to the universe. Sleep is also a way of listening, and deep sleep, perhaps, is the gentlest way of all to be held inside the great and silent beauty of space. The far-off dormant black hole remains exactly where it has always been, remote and still and quiet beyond quiet. Not a threat, not a pull, only a deep shadow resting at the edge of the cosmic landscape. And beside that immense stillness, the pulsar continues to offer its faithful beam, a softer presence, a silver rhythm, a last patient lantern over the dark sea of the stars. And together these distant wonders create a hush so complete that it seems to smooth every remaining ripple in the mind, every unfinished thought, every lingering tension from the day, until all those small inward movements flatten into calm like water after wind has passed. Now the story itself begins to loosen, to thin, to recede the way fog recedes into a valley before dawn. And the details no longer matter in the same clear way. Not the numbers, not the distances, not the names of things, only the feeling remains. The feeling of floating safely in the velvet dark. The feeling of a lighthouse sweeping slowly somewhere beyond sight. The feeling of the universe being much larger than worry and much slower than hurry. And in that feeling, there is such comfort because the stars do not rush, the galaxies do not strain, the pulsar does not hurry its turning, and the night does not ask to be solved. It only asks to be entered gently. And you have already entered it long ago now, chapter by chapter, breath by breath, pulse by pulse, until this final outro is no longer really telling you where you are, but simply staying beside you as everything softens further. And if an image remains, let it be only this: a calm silver beam moving across endless velvet, returning and returning and returning with perfect patience, like a hand smoothing the blanket of the night, like a tide touching shore, like the oldest lullaby in the universe, repeating itself without words. And if even that image begins to blur, let it blur, because the story was always meant to fade, always meant to become quieter than attention, quieter than language, quieter even than imagination, until it becomes only a hush at the edge of sleep. And then, not even that. And now, the lighthouse turns once more in the far dark, and once more after that, and each pass feels softer, more distant, more dreamlike, until the beam is no longer something you follow at all, but something that continues on its own, while you sink lower into stillness, lower into comfort, lower into the deep and dreamless calm beneath all words, where the stars keep their silent watch, where the pulsar keeps turning faithfully, and where you,